I did want to touch on the late night comedy battle because it is still raging. I actually have some graphics I want to go ahead and put up on the screen in just a bit. But before we do that, let's take a look at this clip of Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert talking to each other. Just what do we say, the most ambitious crossover of all time? This could be the least ambitious crossover of all time. Talking to each other about each other. Let's go ahead and roll it.
My executive producer comes over and he goes, hey, I just got this text from Carrie. She thinks I think I'm right to show it to you. And that's how I found out in front of the audience with my mic up. So I brought a clip, okay, and I've just set it up. Is there something we need to know? Did we land on the moon?
Crazy. Jerry told me that you should know.
Okay, Jimmy Kimmel's show has been pulled indefinitely by ABC. Wow. Wow. Wait, hold on one second. I'll be right back. I want to find out what this is about. I'll be right back. So, there's no signal in the Ed Sullivan Theater. So it didn't tell me why. There was no rationale given, just that you had been yanked. So I went back.
You figured I did something stupid, right?
I generally assume that it's your fault.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more clip of those two. This is going to be S2.
I mean, that son of a bitch, you know, is really unbelievable.
Mr. Son of a bitch.
I mean,
Mr. Son of a bitch.
His royal. Yes, no, I never imagined that we'd ever have a president like this, and I hope we don't ever have another president like this again. I mean, I never even imagined there would ever be a situation in which the president of our country was celebrating hundreds of Americans losing their jobs. There's somebody who took pleasure in that. That, to me, is the absolute opposite of what a leader of this country is supposed to be.
Okay. Now, I want to compare that with this clip of Jimmy Fallon on CNBC to tee up a bigger conversation about what late night tells us about the future of media, the past of media, and our relationship with the media. So let's go ahead and roll this clip of Jimmy Fallon on CNBC. I think this was actually today. So all of this is happening within the span of just a few days of each other. Kimmel-Colbert joined forces in different venues, and you have Fallon coming out on CNBC and making this very interesting point, S3.
I am wondering how you're thinking about what you can put in a monologue, what it's like being on an FCC licensed avenue of broadcasting right now.
You know, our show's never really been that political. You know, we hit both sides equally, and we try to make everybody laugh, and that's really the way our show really works. I mean, our monologues are kind of, you know, the same that we've been doing since Johnny Carson was doing The Tonight Show. So really, I just keep my head down and making sure the jokes are funny. I have great writers, clever, smart writers, and we just, we're just trying to make the best show we possibly can and entertain everybody.
Well, it sounds like Fallon has been listening to After Party, of course, where since our first show, we have been making the point that his entire strategy in terms of content in business and the marriage of those two things is following a Carson model. And it actually leaves him behind in the late night ratings over the course of the last decade. And I actually have a graphic I'm going to put up that's super helpful to this extent. This is from the New York Times back in, looking at these numbers back around like 2017. I'm going to zoom in here and you'll notice something very interesting, which is that Fallon had the highest ratings and is then overtaken by Colbert after the 2016 election and inauguration, when Colbert sort of became the go-to anti-Trump late night comedy show. And other than Greg Gutfeld, which is a huge story in and of itself, how he was able to overtake the broadcast networks on a cable network, something that nobody ever would have thought possible like 20 years ago. Colbert on the broadcast networks really was dominant. Even so, it's worth noting, I'm going to put another thing up on the screen here, This is from Deseret News that wrote this week, quote, overall, late night viewership fell 9% year over year among total viewers, and 18 to 49 numbers, so that's the critical demo, dropped 21%, the demo for advertisers. Fallon's show has taken the biggest hit, down 16% among total viewers, and 29% among 18 to 49-year-olds compared to Q2 2024. That's according to Nielsen. Now, it says, while traditional Nielsen ratings show a decline, this is really crucial and it gets left out of a lot of the coverage. Quote, late night hosts are still finding audiences online. Kimmel has 20 million YouTube subscribers, and his 3 most recent videos earned more than 3 million views. Fallon has over 32 million subscribers, Colbert just over 10 million, and Seth Meyers around 5 million. So why is Jimmy Fallon doubling down on the method that has him behind the other hosts over the last decade or so? Well, because it's much more important to focus on digital right now, obviously much more important to focus on digital right now. And if he's able to get a bigger slice of the digital pie, which is just a bigger slice of the media consumption pie, period, then he's actually probably going to help NBC take this old dinosaur and move it to a different car. This is just like terribly mixed metaphors, but you get what I'm saying, which is that the juggernaut that once was The Tonight Show, the sort of traditional broadcast television, those FCC licensed airwaves, are no longer the best vehicle for his content to get out. And so actually NBC is the one that's kind of adapting in this case, where CBS obviously got rid of Colbert. At the end of this year, his show will end. And actually, it's not just Colbert. They're ending the show altogether. The historic franchise, they're ending it all together, not just canceling Colbert, as some of the coverage indicated. And that's because they haven't been able to translate this hulking juggernaut in a way that gets enough of the digital pie to keep going forward. So take a look at this. It's from Morning Consult, and it found Jimmy versus Jimmy for America's favorite late night host. But even so, this is favorability among all adults, Democrats, and Republicans, broken down into different categories. For Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, it goes to Conan O'Brien, Stephen Colbert, James Corden. Do you remember that guy? Carpool Karaoke, edgy stuff. This is in 2021. So Fallon has the highest overall. So he's at 53%. Overall, Stephen Colbert is at 40%. So that's favorability. Their favorite late night host, Jimmy Fallon, 53%, Colbert, 40%. So there you have Fallon with a double-digit lead in favorability on that question. He was slightly edging out Jimmy Kimmel at this point, but Colbert had a 60% approval with Democrats. Fallon was actually even higher than him with Democrats, and Kimmel was even higher than both of them with Democrats. So what does that mean? Basically, the type of people who are watching TV on the broadcast format is different than people who are consuming the content of these late night hosts overall. And what you're seeing on broadcast television night after night is no longer really reflective of, you can't analyze it in the same way that, for example, you would analyze Johnny Carson, who, as the Deseret article I just read from points out, at his height was averaging 9 million viewers a night. 9 million viewers a night. That's appointment television for a much bigger swath of the country, and it gives you a cultural influence that is much more significant than anyone has now. Most people are now going for these sort of fractured segments of the audience, and that explains why the content for somebody like Stephen Colbert is more political. And that explains also why CBS is just getting rid of the entire franchise, because that show was losing money, according to Puck News, tons of money, according to Puck's news report back when Colbert was pulled off the air originally. If you can't translate to digital because your content is appealing to this demographic of like the resistance wine moms that you can get in, tuning into your show night after night because they're super loyal. They're used to late night comedy because they tend to be older, from a generation that had appointment TV, late night comedy shows. But that's such a niche, you can no longer support that on broadcast television. This model is coming to the news overall. It's coming to media overall. It's going to come, I mean, if you look at what is happening in streaming versus the few big blockbuster movies that are coming out. Yes, there's still going to be some people who have ambitions, some content that has ambitions of appealing to a wide swath of the American public, but increasingly a lot of money is going to be dispersed and a lot of resources are going to be dispersed into content that appeals more strongly, more intensely to a smaller group of the public so that you can be sure you get that group of the public in the seats, subscribe to your website, whatever it is. And that's going to change the content significantly. And the question for us is whether we adjust to it. So what you heard from Jimmy Kimmel in that last clip we played was him being like, well, I just don't think any American president should be taking delight in people losing their jobs, referring to the government shutdown. But again, that remark is political. It may be shared by people in the country who say, yeah, I guess that's true. But it's the equivalent of saying, I look at the Democratic Party and I just wonder who would shut down the government and do it because they, in some part, don't want to cut subsidies for people who are either here on asylum or visas, or they want the federal government to continue subsidizing hospitals that are using emergency Medicaid funds on illegal migrants. Now, that is not a great punchline. I'll be the first to admit it. But the point is, what Kimmel said, he tried to package it in this sort of neutral framing, but he's not a neutral guy. He's a partisan actor. And that just doesn't work in the business model anymore. So everything, unless you go like all in, it doesn't work in the business model. And unless you're curating it not just for the next 5 years of whatever will happen on broadcast television before the total takeover, you're useless to these giant corporations. I've mentioned this before. It's really hard to go to sleep after the show. Maybe Rachel and Inez are going to experience that right now. After you have all of the adrenaline of a live broadcast, falling asleep is difficult when you wrap at 11. And I really mean this, though. Those Cozy Earth bamboo sheets, I look forward to sleeping. It makes it much easier for me to jump into bed after the show. Cozy Earth bamboo sheets and bubble cuddle blanket are fantastic. You get excited to jump into bed even after the high of partying with Rachel and Inez, at least virtually. These bamboo sheets are next level, buttery soft, breathable, and they keep you cool all night. You'll sleep a few degrees cooler and wake up genuinely refreshed. And the bubble cuddle blanket is like a warm, luxurious hug, mid-weight plush faux fur, equal parts nap-worthy and stylish. There's a reason Cozy Earth offers a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. That says it all. They know you'll fall in love. So visit CozyEarth.com. Use my code Emily for 20% off. That's CozyEarth.com, code Emily. And if you get a post-purchase survey, let me know you heard about Cozy Earth from After Party with Emily Jashinsky, because home is not just where you live, it's how you feel. Let's go home with Cozy Earth.